Hello, 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 everybody. Thank you all for tuning in, whoever's tuned in. Does it sound floaty? Does it sound floaty to you? No?
Yeah, sounds good.
Today, you guys have a treat in the building. Charlie Nowlin, he's got some incredible whitetails behind his belt. And we're going to talk about, what it takes to kind of, walking away from those 140 inches like we talked
Mm.
about, which are,
Yeah.
would get your heart going. It doesn't matter. And we're going to talk about some of these giants like you see here. We've got one over here, which we'll get to you guys here in a bit. That's the one. That's the main event you guys probably came to see to begin with. But yeah, we'll take it away. We'll ask my age-old question that I always ask everybody. Right out the gate is, if you had one tactic that's your favorite, other than win, everybody knows win. If you had one tactic that you would take to the woods with you, what would it be? Whether it be patience, whether it be any of those things. A tactic could be about anything, man.
I would say low pressure.
No pressure.
Low pressure. I mean, if you can get in and get out without leaving, without bumping anything,
Bumping
or,
anything, yeah.
or just leaving scent everywhere.
Right.
The less pressure you put on them, the better chances of
Right, right.
You're not disrupting them.
Yeah.
So disruption is a big key.
Right. And you were
on
saying
that.
that, with that buck that you shot last year, that big boy over there, you were saying, you didn't crack into that property a ton last year
No.
because of having that,
I-
didn't know what pressure, what bedding areas he was
Right.
in just yet.
I didn't have permission to hunt this piece. It's 330 acres. And it's a family farm and it hasn't been hunted. And so when I got permission, it was already into October.
Okay.
So I didn't want to just charge in there.
Right.
And
Right.
So where I'd seen deer from her house is where I kind of went. It was a hayfield. Pulled up to the hayfield and walked the edge of it. I didn't want to cut in the woods or anything. And found this shed.
This guy,
Yeah.
this shed.
Yeah. I found that shed. So I was like, well, man, that's just right here on the edge of the hayfield. And
Look at that.
I went 20 yards in timber, put up a stand. And that's where I hunted for the first couple sits.
Gotcha. Did you, like for observation reasons, pretty much?
Basically, just trying
Yeah.
to take an inventory.
Yeah.
Because I have no idea what's here. I know that guy made it, hopefully. Just because you find a shed don't mean he ain't been hit, poached, or anything. But it's a good start.
Yeah, no, that's this is the start you want on every. That's a dream.
Yeah. So I sat at that location for, I think, 2 weekends. And then I talked to a buddy of mine. And real knowledgeable about deer hunting and how
Right.
to approach them. He'll belly crawl just like that guy on your
Caleb,
show.
last week he said that was a really intensive tactic.
This
Like,
this is that guy.
Yeah.
Deer is his life. So he told me, get Onyx. He said, bring it up. And so I did, and he hit the topo on it. And I showed him where I'd found this and where I was sitting. And I told him I didn't want to intrude too deep.
Right.
So he's looking at it, and he's like, oh, man. He's like, look at this saddle. And it's right here, the saddle. And then there's like some hidden fields in the middle of the timber. He's like, you need to make your way up there. So that next weekend, I didn't hunt. I waited till mid-morning and drove up there. And there's an old logging road that went heading right down the saddle.
Right.
So I got out, didn't take a bow, didn't take nothing because I'm not there to hunt. I'm just observing. And
Yeah.
so I'm walking down through, and then the sign just, rubs, scrapes, you name it, all down this logging road. And I'm on the Onyx, and I get to this saddle, and it's just signs everywhere. And I'm like, man,
He was on point.
So I found a spot, which that logging road opened up into the edge of this, growed up field that somebody had mowed the edge of it. And I set up a stand there. And I think I had a total of 6 sits in that stand. And just buck after buck after buck. And the quality of bucks up there is,
Yeah.
I was having a hard time.
Yeah.
Not shooting.
We said
deer,
that earlier.
You see a 145 that you think is 145. It could be 150.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not one for letting them go, but I did.
Right.
Because,
Right.
basically this
You
shed.
find a
had-
shed.
Plus, I'd seen a deer in velvet that had the big big
Big
nasty
ball.
ball. So
Gotcha.
I knew that there was something good,
Right.
up there. And so yeah,
I did that same thing last year. I had, which I showed you that buck. I had a pretty good mid 140s buck. At a couple different times, we call him the Bully 9. He's just not a real. He's not a real like super impressive. He's not real tall. He's just kind of a goofy looking buck. I mean, he's cool. Don't get me wrong. He's heavy. He's what you want in a good mature deer. And this year he's 5.5, so he's most definitely, probably honestly going to be one of my number one targets early season to try to get after him if I can. I've kind of learned that. I've been hurt by that bully buck before. That's in your area that'll push out. We were talking about that. Before we got on the show of, getting that bully buck's almost as important as getting any other buck on your farm, any other target buck you got on your farm.
Right.
Because size does matter, but body size with these bucks are what matter. Oh, yeah. And this buck in particular, he looks like a cow. Like he's just huge bodied buck, and he's not scared of nothing. Yeah. And so that's what I'm kind of, when you're talking about that whole, getting in and kind of prepping and figuring out a different area, and you don't want to pass that 140s buck. And a part of that is too, it's like if you pass that 140s, what if he pushes out a buck that you're after? So that's one of those things for me. It's hard because I have and plus it gets your heart going, like we said.
It's extremely hard. I mean, in bow hunting, and they're right there.
Right.
So, I mean, you got a good look at this deer, you know, and it's like.
I mean, I don't think I would have changed anything about last year. You hear about guys that hunt a specific buck, and that's kind of where I'm at. I was telling Dalton and a few other guys, that I talked throughout the season. I'm predominantly after the Voldemort buck, and I'm after a big buck we call a Vander. And, obviously a Vander didn't give me much of an option. He left the farm. I feel, he summered on us, I feel, all year with beans. Neighbors on beans this year, so I'm hoping it's reversed. I'm hoping that weight, passing and
pulls him over.
I'm hoping, come September. I mean, I don't know if I'll get a lot of pictures of him during, this frame, and I honestly don't even know if he's alive. I have not got one confirmation picture of him yet. But like last year, he moved out on, I think it was the 11th of September, 4 days before season. I was getting pictures of him every single day. And then it was like a ghost. Like he just, we hauled the beans out and he was gone. No, I was getting
bachelor groups. Was
just
he in a bachelor group
by himself. He only ran around with one other buck, which was that Bully 9 that I was talking about. And believe it or not, that Bully 9 pushed him around, and I've got pictures of him pushing him around.
And there's deer like that.
Just a dominant buck. I mean, he's just a brute, and he knows it. Like he knows he rules a roost out there. But he's been a hard buck to get on. Like he really, I had my buddy Chad, he told me a few years ago, I had a video of him where that deer was 7 yards underneath me. Yeah. And I watched him walk away, ears all tucked back. And at the time, I believed he was a 3.5-year-old. He might have been a 4.5-year-old, which I'm still not, you know how that is, aging a deer. Yeah. Well, body size, man. There's sometimes some bucks are just big.
Oh, just big.
Big body. Like Caleb's buck that he had in here last week, 33-inch neck. His brother been doing taxidermy for 14 years, and it's like, I've never seen a deer that big. And in the video, if you have seen the video,
I watched it.
Dude, the moment I seen that deer fall in that hole, I'm like, dude, he's in trouble. Like he's gonna have to call somebody.
That neck was just.
But that buck was big. But I think with the way that bully buck is. That's like an important topic that I don't feel like we, a lot as bow hunters, we don't talk about, maybe taking that extra step to take that 140, 150 inch deer, which by no means is a deer that I would pass. Like inches are one thing, but age is everything for me.
Right. And
maturity is the real awesome key about hunting these big whitetails for me.
Yeah. That 3.5, you get to the 4.5, 5.5, them deer are really putting it on.
Oh yeah.
And there's some deer that don't.
So what did you think this buck was aged at over here?
I thought he was probably 4.5 or 5, and then he come back as 5.5. But
guys, I mean, this thing right here is bigger around my wrist, guys. Like his mass is bigger than my wrist. And
he doesn't photograph real well, but man, when you hold him,
he does everything
pretty
well.
beefy.
I think he does everything well, man. And you said he had another another shovel or something off the back end.
He had about an 8 or 9 inch drop over there that he had 6 days before I shot him. That I finally, when that guy started giving me trail cam pics, because I had none.
Right.
I had none of him. So all the trail cam pics I got were from the neighbor, and I was worried to death when I found him. I was like, "Oh, he's broke something," so I was gonna go back and look for it. And then the neighbor, he's like, "Nah, he lost that 6 days ago." And I'm like,
Right.
"Okay, well that saves me a lot of looking." But yeah, with that it would have put him up in the 190 threshold.
190 threshold. I mean, like you're talking a buck that. What was his inside?
What was he in there? You would think I would forget all this stuff, but he's not really super wide.
No, that's what I'm saying.
He's
I mean,
compact and real heavy. I think he was only like 16 something in there.
That's what I was going to guess. Yeah, it was about 16. But like, when you got a 16-inch wide rack that scores in the 180s, are you kidding me? Like, I mean, like that's
everything about him is just just heavy.
He's a majestic. That's majestic. Like, it's just. I don't even know what I'd do if I seen something like that. I don't know what I'd do because that thing
Thank goodness I didn't see the other side.
Yeah,
I mean, that's the side I see.
This side here,
his left side, because he walked in it from behind me, and was kind of cutting away from me out into the field, and all I could see was this big left side. I knew he was a shooter, body size, and just the way he carried himself. I was gonna take a crack at him.
Well, yeah.
And so yeah.
So when it comes to you were talking about even this buck. Well, he was explaining to me the Mercy buck. How it's kind of wild how that whole ordeal panned out with that buck. When you get into that class of buck, where and somebody that's had it firsthand is basically what I'm getting at here.
Right.
You're having it firsthand. You talked about how hard it is to pass 140 inches because it gets your heart going.
Yeah.
But when you hit something like these, it changes. I feel like it changes that perspective on.
Oh, by far.
Maturity and being like, man, okay, this is what a mature buck's about.
By far, yeah.
And it gives you that. It's almost like getting clarification or confirmation of going, okay, now I know what I need to do to get something like this.
Yeah.
You got to let them grow.
Oh yeah.
And when you, like you said, you passed a 150-inch deer, and it's like,
yeah,
then you get that as a reward. You know what I mean? And that's insane.
I haven't started running cameras yet up there because I've been so busy, but I need to get in there because the deer that I passed up
May have to move you forward a little bit.
The deer that I passed up last year, dude, they are to be, pushing the 160, mid 160, hopefully 170 threshold.
Is that 12 you're talking about, or
yeah? There's and I didn't know he was there.
Right.
That's just from the neighbor giving me intel.
Right.
And
which I think is great that you guys do that.
And I never met this guy.
That makes the fact that he's doing that's the way we're supposed to hunt.
Yeah, and it was all just because I got a connection with this deer.
Right.
To him. He hunted that deer for 3 years.
Yeah.
So when I found that out and found out that he lived close to me, first thing I did, I took that rack to him.
Right.
Just so, and he's like, man, that's just closure,
Yeah.
because that whole plot of land up there is gravel roads all the way around, and he's like, poaching up there is just crazy.
Yeah.
So he's like,
when
that deer
like
disappears, it's nice to have closure.
Right.
You know where it went. And, so I took it over there, and man, he enjoyed it. And he gave me zip drives with every trail cam pick, and I mean, just for the taxidermy, if I have it recreate.
Right.
Now that he's been officially scored, I'll probably have him recreate the drop, and so when he's full body mounted, that's the way he was.
I mean, that'd be one of those things. Like me and my buddy Chad were actually talking about that for our quest bucks we had last year. I told him, I said, I want to get one. I want to get casts made of each of us, so we can each have one when we went in together. And I want to make a quest tower for each of us.
That'd be cool.
And get the forms. Maybe that's one of those things. Like getting a form made of that would be, dude. That thing is so insane.
Yeah,
like
he's a freak.
it's just as incredible. It's you get to that caliber and. Like you said, I got 3 years. I'm currently in that moment right now. 3 years hunting this one buck, and that history you build with these animals, are just, to me, that's more than anything. Like when I have a history, at least on a private farm. Like don't get me wrong, I love, like, one of my biggest passions going to hunting, public land and having that random, oh man, look at that, walk in. But when you have a private farm, it's like take that time to try to get that relationship built, and go, it makes it so much more bittersweet. Like you said, that guy got a chance to hold something that was a 3-year endeavor.
Yeah.
And it didn't get poached.
No.
And that was enough.
Just that part of that whole deal, that was awesome.
Yeah.
I mean, he's called his friends that's also hunted that deer, and they show up, and it's just a whole, I spent 2 or 3 hours over there with them guys just holding this and talking about it. And,
oh yeah.
What it was the year before. I didn't know it had double shovels the year before.
Right.
I found this shed, but the double shovels broke.
Right.
So I had no idea that until I got home with that deer. I was like, let me go get that shed. And then I was like, well, this is his shed.
This is him.
So,
I mean, and that's what I feel like this whole community should be about. I constantly beat that into people's heads on the show is, if you're not actively trying to engage in what your neighbor's got going on,
yeah.
You're failing not just you but him as well, because you might have a little bit of intel that helps either one of you. Because if neither one of you get it and he dies of natural causes or he dies of something, gets hit by a car, then all that 3 years of that guy, just a perfect example, it's gone.
Yeah.
And it's like there's no need for that.
Right.
You can correlate back and forth, and if they smack it, be just as happy for them as you are. If you were to be able to get after.
Yeah.
I mean, is it a salty feeling sometimes to be able to hunt a deer for 3 years and go, man, the neighbor got it, but at the same time, it's like we coordinated. And I'm happy for him to be able to hit that kind of a caliber of a deer. I'm happy that it came off of this area. That tells me we're managing this area right.
Yeah, and there's quality bucks up there, and like I say, the one you talked about, he's a mainframe 12.
Gotcha.
And every time's split,
That's
except
insane.
for I think it's his left brow.
Gotcha.
It's not split.
That's going to be insane what he does.
Last year if he makes it through, hopefully I catch him on camera here pretty soon. And yeah, he ought to be a stellar buck.
I'll tell you what, I'd have a camera down in that damn same saddle, that she was in.
Yeah, and like I say, I went up there and I shed hunted a little bit. I still didn't want to go too deep.
Right.
So I just kind of, I don't know, man. It's just I didn't want to mess anything up.
Right.
So
just talk about shed hunting for a minute. Like I do it. That's my biggest fear. You just said that I didn't go in there too far. I hear guys that are like, dude, don't worry about it. You're in that off season. You're gonna go in there for a day and screw it up. They'll come back in 3 weeks. It's not like you can hunt them anyway. But then I'm that same way like you are. I don't want to mess the sanctuary up at all. Like if I can stay out of it, I try to. The shed ain't worth it to me. And
I don't want to go tromping through bedding areas and stuff like that. If I don't know, I kind of look at it as like if somebody intrudes your home, it's always going to be in the back of your mind that somebody's been in your house.
Yep.
And I think deer ain't too far off from that.
No.
They're real spooky animals anyway. So I think as less intrusive of it that you can be, then the better chances you are.
Well, yeah, keeping.
Because most of those bucks like that, they're nocturnal.
Mm-hmm.
And then, man, once you start picking them up in daylight, you better get on them.
Yeah. Yeah. So you think cell cams and things like that are definitely aiding and helping people do this whole getting on them? I think so too. I think it's
cell cams,
innovation.
Cell cams are great. I've got them. I don't have to go in there.
Exactly.
And I get notifications on my phone.
Yep.
And sometimes when I was hunting at my old spot, I would look at it when I was getting out of the truck.
Yeah.
And there's deer down there right now.
Yep.
So
I got to pick a different path or hang out
back a little bit.
Yeah.
Wait for sun to come up a little bit so I can see what I'm doing.
And you hear this kind of it's not a controversy, I guess. I would hate calling it a controversy, but at the same time it kind of is, because people are man, you're in there using cell cams and this and that. How is that fair? And I'm like, be completely honest, it's a whole lot better for the herd.
Right.
You're not agitating. Why would you want to go in there and agitate them?
Yeah.
If we got a technology that allows us to go in there and not agitate deer and let them live in their natural, we're only in there to go after ones that have lived their prime.
Right.
And if that's what this community's become, so let's do that. Like, I don't understand the whole, that's cheating or this.
Case in point, I run that cell camera. I had a doe that was coming in real sickly. I mean, super sick. Ribs showing and all that. Now that's the deer I'm hunting.
Right.
That was my goal at that spot.
To get her out, herd
spot.
management.
I was going to take her out because I didn't know, because she is in bad shape. But then I think she finally died of natural.
Right.
Before I could get a hold of her. But that's kind of a tool to
100%.
managing your herd.
That 140 incher, like I shot 2 years ago. I was telling you, I passed him 11 times, at least 11 times at 20 yards. One of the hardest things I ever did, but I could tell he was a young buck. I could tell, and he was a homebody, and he got gored by another buck in his back, and he wasn't gonna make it. And
Right.
I actually thought he got shot during youth season, and he got gored in the back. So I was like, man, I'm gonna go in there last day or two of gun season and just see if he moves through. And I ended up getting one picture where he had this huge mass on his back where he had been gored all the way through. And it's crazy that coyotes didn't get to him because we've had kind of a coyote issue here in the last year on that place. And I'm going to have to try to really kind of hone on that over the summer. I'm going to get with some boys and do that. But
I do that. We do that. We run dogs.
is that something? Yeah. I want to get into that. Because I want your knowledge on
You'll
that.
have to go with us sometime.
Dude, I'm down to come anytime. You know me. You ain't got to beg me to come out in the woods. I'll come with you.
It's addicting.
But that's one thing that, I think these cell cams, the last 2 bucks, to be completely honest, have allowed me to get on deer that were technically issues and problems on my farm. The one getting gored wasn't his fault, but why would let a buck that caliber go to waste?
Right.
If you got a chance, there was another buck on there we called George Clooney that was every bit of a 170-inch deer. Mainframe, perfect. I'll have to show you a picture. Probably one of the prettiest 10s I've ever seen in my life. Just big, heavy, thick, wide. Everything that checked off the box, he was there. And I predominantly hunted him all year. That's kind of why, one of the other reasons I didn't. Once I found kind of the age and how to judge him, on the hoof. A trail camera is a little bit different, but when you can get him on the hoof, you can really get a good age judge. I feel.
Yeah, you can.
I feel it's just something personally. I don't know how accurate it is for everybody, but for me, I can feel I get a good age grade on him. And I had that buck in there doing that, and so, you talked about having that 145-incher, 150-incher walk by. He's got the potential to be something like this.
Oh, yeah.
Next year.
Yeah.
And then once you get them cameras in there, you're not going to agitate his bed. He's gonna grow comfortably. He's not going to be stressed. They say, I've heard that stress will actually make a deer regress
I
and
don't
growth
doubt that at all.
because they're not as apt to get out and get proteins that they're needed because they don't want to move. So all this hysteria that's kind of been created around these cell cams and whatnot, it's like, no, let these technologies grow for us. The crossbows, that's more ethical. There's all these extra things. We shouldn't be coming at each other in the community because somebody hunts differently.
No, if it's there, use it.
Use it, 100%.
I talk about this Onyx app.
Yeah.
I love that thing.
Yes.
I didn't think I'd love a hunting app, but that thing, I could chart everything on that.
Yep. And what's great about it too is like they've really dove in. Onyx has done a really good job about that, diving into the 3Ds and really getting a good feel before even stepping into the woods at all. You can get a good feel of how that terrain's going to lay.
Yep.
And based off of like I was talking to what was that kid Blake Stevenson about I think it was 3 weeks ago or so. He explained a spot that I'd had I'm talking the exact same encounter spot. If it wasn't the same farm, you wouldn't have known any different.
Right.
Like it to a T. And so when you start putting those pieces together, through these podcasts and going, do I have a spot like that on my farm? Maybe I am overlooking something. You can get on that Onyx app and you can go, I do have something like that. When that guy said, is there any saddles?
Yeah. He's looking for pinch points,
Yep.
saddles. But man, when he seen that saddle, he's just like, he stopped and he's like,
yeah, you need to be in there.
That's where you need to be. And
Right.
like I say, as long as it wasn't too deep, I was going.
Right. So how deep, how far do you think you were in? Was you fringe hunting, 50 yards off the field, or was there a field that was in transition between that bowl or that saddle?
There was. They actually have a lot of cattle.
Okay.
So the cattle were running in the front pasture.
Okay.
So I pulled in with the cattle.
Actually, you know what? Why are we doing it that way? We can do it this way,
yeah.
where I can show you. Well, you can literally show us exactly what you can.
I can erase this
That out there, right there. I've got this thing is, it's going to be nice to us today so far. If I don't write your name, I figured this out. Everybody that's been watching for the last 2 weeks, if you don't write something on this whiteboard before you start, it will go blurry. Something pings off of it.
I watched it on the last episode. And then finally it just cleared up.
Yep. Sometimes it'll do it. Sometimes it don't. Sometimes I got to reset it. But yeah, go ahead and give us a little bit of a rundown of how the terrain worked for you in that scenario.
This is all cattle.
Okay.
In her field that she's running. Right here, this is all timber, all the way around. There's the hay field where I found that shed was right here.
Okay, and so this little slough between those two that you just drew that's woods.
Yeah, it kind of narrows down,
Is there a creek or anything?
It does like this. There's a creek on this side. This is just nothing but draws going down to the creek. So I found that shed here, set up here first day. Seen real nice young 10, super wide. Going to be a stud in a couple years. Hunted there. Well, this saddle happened to be like right up in here.
Okay.
And it was shaped just like that. And well, when I got up in here after we talked about it, I noticed there was a logging road, and it was just a clear path straight through this saddle.
Okay. And this goes downhill.
This is up on a ridge.
Okay.
This is a whole ridge. This hayfield rolls down. It all meets down in here in these ravines.
Okay. You know, I've noticed that, which is odd that you say that. I have a spot on my farm what I call the Crab Claw that does that exact same thing with cedars on one side and food and a creek on the other.
Just crazy amount of deer
traveling through it.
And then this logging road right here at the end of this saddle, it opens up into these fields where the lady who owns it says they can't get nothing to grow on them.
Really?
So it just opened up into this big field that went around, and the creek's down here. You know, it's 330 plus acres.
Jeez.
Yeah.
So is that
and
they can't get nothing, not like hay, or they don't get nothing out of it, or just?
Yeah, they said they tried to plant, you know, grasses and stuff. It just won't grow.
I wonder what that's about.
I don't know. So they mowed the edge of it, and they left the middle of it growed up like 4 feet or so.
Oh man, dude, talk about a bed.
Yeah. So as soon as I walked down this logging road, I mean, the signs were just crazy. I mean, I was like, yeah, I'm getting
ground
this
scrapes,
spot. Just
creating
scrapes
like
all
connecting the dots.
All the way down this logging road. It's like taking me, following a map.
Yeah.
So then I come out to the edge of this field, and there's a huge scrape right here.
Was it perennial, you think? All year long type of deal, or?
I think so. I think so. And it was hit too. So I put a stand right here. I was like, I don't want to go too far out in here.
Right.
Well, I sit there, I think one weekend, both days, and I had that 140 come by.
Yeah.
And he stopped 8 yards and was eating acorns.
That's the hardest thing on earth.
You talk about hard.
Because it does. I don't care. It can be, honestly, a 100-inch deer for me.
Oh, yeah.
Gets me going right there. You know,
you know, he's 8 yards away, and I can hear him crunching on acorns. And I'm just looking at his rack, and I'm looking at him, and I'm like, wow. What did I end up scoring here?
What did I get in here? Yeah, this is going to be insane.
So, and I've talked to a lot of people, a lot of old timers, when they hunt the edge of a field, they say, look at the inside corner.
Okay.
Hunt the inside corner.
Like you know, on coming into a pinch or inside corner of a field, because they will. Okay.
So
okay.
I was sitting here, and I noticed that the deer would come up out of this ravine, and this inside corner, they would pop right out. So I was like, man, but it's too far of a shot down through there.
Right.
And I had a nice buck come out there and go out into the field. So when I got done, I think it was that second sit that Sunday, I moved to right here.
All right, pause. So how far was that move? Because I talk about this
30
so
yards.
much. Okay, guys, do not get afraid to adjust.
Nope.
Once you've sat.
30 yards, because they would come there and they would turn, and they'd be out in the field. And once they got out in the field, they'd angle across it. And all I could do was watch.
And okay, so on the back side of that corner, or in that back corner there, did you have any kind of curvature where terrain was a little bit lower in that area?
This whole field from this logging road.
Is this the high point up here?
It's the high point, and it rolled down.
Yep.
Into this corner.
Yep.
And then this whole field kind of rolled off down towards the creek.
Yep. So they're just skating by without even having anybody even notice them.
Yeah. And I'm a big guy, so I like a ladder stand.
Yeah.
So I got to move a whole ladder stand. So I moved it 30, 35 yards. Now I'm within 20 yards of their
main path
where they're coming through, and I'm sitting up there, and I can see past just going.
Another question, real quick: north or south, east, west? Was where? North. Okay.
South.
Okay. So you've got everything for predominantly during that November coming right up and blowing. I guess would have been back away from you if I'm looking at it right.
I was loving to hunt this with the wind out of the west.
Yeah,
because I was
northwest is what I predominantly like to hunt on my farm.
I was coming in this way, and I didn't want to disrupt anything
off
down
that
here
bedding,
or to the north of me. So I hunted a lot with the wind coming out of the west, northwest, southwest a little bit.
Yeah, anything that's something too, you know, that I kind of talk about, you know, as far as people not paying attention to thermals and things like that do happen. And if you're not on your thermal game, I really highly recommend you get into learning that.
Oh yeah.
Because your wind, I mean, wind is key and everybody knows that. So when you have that, you need a certain wind. Just because that wind's doing that doesn't mean that's where it's going to end up.
Right.
And I got busted last year on that big buck, that Evander buck, doing that. And I'm like, I wanted to sit there and throw up, because he was coming right. I had it perfect. I had it set up, and I'm like, okay, he's gonna come right to me. And he got within 60 yards, and he like,
when they lock up, it's like,
if you're not drawn, you're screwed. You're done.
I just close my eyes.
Yep.
And just
It's like, oh no. My buddy Chad, on the other hand, he hunts for the lockup.
Right.
Which is a tactic that is one of the most ballsy things I think I've ever heard of anybody hunting. When you hear somebody go, man, I hope they hit my wind because I'm already drawn. That's insane.
And I can see that, because you know where you come in.
Yep.
You know which direction that deer's heading. So if he does cross your trail, there's probably going to be a time that he's going to stop because he's going to know something's up. So I see the opportunity there.
Yep. And he said the thing he loves about
game,
it's hardcore. And it's wild. I've got footage of it. I've got footage of it working like you wouldn't believe. And it's like, oh, dude. I mean, one last year coming around that lake. I don't know if you got to see that first episode we did. If you haven't, check it out because that whole hunt's on there. And I'm telling you, dude, that deer hit him hard, and he stopped dead in his tracks. And
it's crazy.
He just it was just enough tall grass where he's like, I kind of screwed up a little bit because there's just enough tall grass there. And he goes, luckily there was a hot doe.
Right.
And he was willing to overlook it, but he went out and around, and he just came back through another little pocket. But he's like, if that tall grass, if I wouldn't have kind of misjudged that tall grass in there, because I didn't walk through it because I didn't want to leave my scent, so I couldn't really judge how tall it was. He's like, he would have been toast at 20 yards, and that deer, you can watch it in a video. He hits that spot and he stops. He said what he likes about doing that is it's not the same as going meh.
Oh yeah.
And then he's got his attention turned towards you.
No,
he hits that scent and he don't know where it's coming from other than the wind's blowing this direction.
Blowing this way, so he's
got to be somewhere.
He's locked on.
But he's gonna go. He stops and he's locked, like his legs, everything. So he believes, and I don't know if there's science to it, but there's got to be something to it because I've watched it work 2 or 3 times, where that deer doesn't duck. That deer won't duck because he's in that like, what is that?
Up.
And by the time he hits that, you can already be drawn, pulled, use that, use your trees, use those things to your advantage, and kind of know where your wind hits. Pick that tree. Yeah. He'll go in there on a high ridge and, throw out wind indicators and wait for that spot to hit. And he'll go, I can shoot there. Yeah. And he'll have a tree in the way or something. And as soon as that buck walks on that tree, he pulls back, that deer hits his scent, and its arrow's already going through him.
Thermals are
thermals
crazy.
are.
I mean, I used to just use a powder, but
the powder
doesn't work.
Nope.
It gives you a direction up here.
Yep.
But if you use like milkweed or something like that,
you can
watch that thing for a long ways, and you can see the different thermals and drops.
Yep. And that's a THP thing. I started watching those guys, the hunting public guys. And I honestly I'd never even heard of that before them. Before that, and I was like you.
Oh yeah.
All right, I'm good here, and then get busted and go, how did I even get busted? Because I wasn't paying attention to any of that stuff, And then when they said it, I'm like, dude, that makes so much sense. That was like, honestly, that's probably one of the biggest things. Like, you talk about what's my favorite thing to bring in the woods. That's probably it. I think that's more deadly than your bow, almost. You know what I mean? Like, because you're silent.
That's always in the backpack.
Yeah. If you forget it, and if you're not using it, you guys need to get on that. Because
I haven't got to play around with ozonics or stuff like that yet. My daughter actually bought me one this Christmas. So.
Oh man, that's a good daughter. Yeah. That's a good daughter.
Yeah. So we'll see how that goes. Scent-free showers. I'm all about that, especially my hair.
Yeah. Oils on your hands and fingers.
I wasn't really into that much. I was always like, give me that fresh earth.
Yeah.
Just
there's always a chemical hue to it.
And then I started using a thing called Scent Thief.
Okay.
5 or 6 years ago.
I've heard a lot of people actually talk about this Scent Thief.
I'm a believer. Because that deer there,
you think he would have?
I want to say, because he come in my wind. the wind was blowing straight at him.
Scent thief. I don't know if you got Charlie Nowlin sponsored over here, but letting you know right now, if you don't, you need to reach out and talk to him.
Good stuff. So, and I use it. I spray down with Scent Thief when I go check trail cameras. You know, because that's what I'm going to be wearing when I'm hunting, even if it does have some kind of odor or something. You know, hopefully they get used to it. You know.
I mean, here's my thing on scent control. You're never going to be perfect. There's no bulletproof system out there. They haven't proved it, and I've never been proved it. What I will say about it, because my buddy Chad, he don't even care. He makes a point to fill up for gas and smoke a cigarette in a stand.
Oh yeah,
okay?
Yeah.
And he'll do it. And I'm like, okay, well, he's killing these giant deer. You know, something's to it. What we've both kind of come to an agreement on, though, is I've told him, I said, I'm a scent freak too. I use a lot of scent because I know at that one moment, if he smells it pungently, he's gonna freak out.
Yeah.
If he smells it lightly, he's like, was this last week or is it right now?
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
as it had time to wear off. So the scent control for me is I feel like I associated with it. It's worn off. And so he's not as comfortable because you go check a trail cam, all those little bitty things that you think about, you go check a trail cam, he knows when you changed it, he's going to be different for a few days. But then 3-4 days later, he's going to come hit that mineral site. He's going to hit that rope and he's going to understand that there's a less scent there.
Yep.
And nobody's there. So already he's associating in his brain,
Oh,
I can deal with that amount of scent. But if it's pungent, I'm out of here. I know he's been here.
Yeah.
And so, like, I agree with you. I think the whole, you know, it literally lets them, you know, understand that it's nobody's there,
Right.
but they are. You know what I mean? And it does. I've had bucks walk right behind me. I've always been I don't really have a brand, I guess, but I really got into that. I guess if I were to say a brand that I use that phase system. I don't know if you've heard of that. I've learned from it on the Deer Society from them guys, which is a good show. If you guys haven't watched that, you need to go watch it because they got some incredible footage. But I started using it, you know, and it's product all the way from clothing all the way out to lotion when you go into the stand. And then they've got a foam phase or a foam that when you get into your stand, if you haven't, you know, you're going to sweat no matter what getting to it. Definitely. I don't care if it's October or, you know, whatever. You're going to have some sweat.
Season, you're going to.
But you talk about hair, you know, and there's a spray foam that they have, and it's like foam soap, I guess. And once you get there, you rub it down on the extremities. I rub it on my hands, and then I climb up. And then when I get in my stand, I'll take it and I'll rub it through my hair.
Yeah.
And then I'll pop my cap back on. And I had a buck last year that I know for a fact he should have known I was there. And it wasn't that he wasn't mature; it just wasn't a buck that was on my radar. And he's a 7-point, and he did that, dude. He didn't even notice me. So I agree with you. I think you have to have it at least in your arsenal to help.
I believe that it might not help you all the time, but it might help you sometimes. And I'll take sometimes better than no times.
Yep.
You know.
And you know, we always talk about access, and that was what kind of the thing that we were talking about, you know, with this setup here was your access. You know, you're talking about that logging road and knowing that they cross on that back corner because of the way that terrain lays.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, if you, for some reason, have a swirling wind that comes off at that saddle, which typically happens in those areas, you are covered.
Oh, yeah.
At least 50%. You've never heard anybody go, we'll give you insurance and we're going to cover you at least up to, you know, this point.
Right.
But that's the only option we have. You're not going to say no. You're going to be like, well, $50 is better than 50,000. You know what I mean? So
Exactly.
It's like you got to treat that stuff the same way. And in my opinion, I think that's what you got to do. You got to be willing to go, you know what? I know it's not bulletproof, but it might be bulletproof this time. You know, it might work this time, you know, or that. And I'm not saying that stuff doesn't work because, like I said, I've had several different types that I've used over the years. I'm going to have to check this Scent Thief out because I've heard so much good stuff about it that I can't not check it out at this point.
Yeah,
but,
I'm a believer. I mean, it's worked for me a couple different times. So,
you know, and if you were to say, you know, like they always talk about what's the most important part of you know, scent control, you know, and personally, I think boots.
Oh yeah.
Boots. When I get out to a hunting spot or anywhere I go, I look for mud, water, anything.
I walk through everything.
I'll rub it around before I even walk in.
You know that's one thing about right here. I park in a cattle lot.
Yeah.
So
they're used to that noise.
So every little puddle, I don't care what it is, what's in it.
Yeah.
I'm walking through it.
Yeah.
And before I hit that logging road.
Okay, so you're like me at that. I do the same thing. I feel like a kid playing in the rain. You know what I mean? But I'm getting it everywhere. I want it all over.
You know, you take them off, you touch them. They,
Yep.
You know, they pick up scents from riding in your truck. You know,
They sit there.
I use rubber boots. You know, I hunt with my rubber boots. Nothing else. You know, but
you know, they talk about that too. The whole I was about to say like rubber versus cloth or whatever you want to use. You know, I mean, obviously your feet are going to have a scent. So I'm with you on the whole rubber boots kick. I'm pretty well. That's what I'm hunting out of. Yep. I feel like if you wear, and of course, if you're not following your wind, you're going to screw yourself anyway. But you know, typically you can get away with certain things. But why try to get away with things when you don't have to? It's kind of where I'm at in my stage of hunting. And it's almost simplified, dude. You spray your boots down, you find a waterway to walk up to the last 30 yards of your stand or 40 yards to your stand or whatever the case may be.
Yeah.
That's something that I typically, if I'm hanging a stand, water is always key regardless. So if I can find a ditchway, a waterway as an access, you're not leaving nothing behind at that point, other than your ground set that's already down in whatever little holler or creek that you're in.
Exactly.
You know, and it might linger there, but if it's a creek and it's running, it's going to pull all your scent down to wherever that creek's going regardless.
Oh, yeah.
So, you know, when I look at those little areas that are saddles and stuff like that, that's probably typically the biggest thing I look for. Can I get out of a creek bed and walk 10 yards to my stand? Or can I get out of a creek bed and go right into a tree? And I've had several bucks, you know, and they use those creek beds too. Like they're doing the same thing. So you're really encasing a lot of advantages for that scenario. I'm going to switch back over to us right here. You're really encasing that whole opportunity chance when you take all the little factors. You don't have to go out, like guys, you don't have to go out there and buy the most expensive clothing out there.
No.
None of that. I mean, get stuff you believe in, you know, concealment, and then use your natural things around you to help hunt. I mean, that's it's basic. You know, if you want to use a little scent control, use a scent control because I do believe it works.
I do too.
But don't think it's bulletproof. Use it in the sense of if one comes into a zone that I know my wind is down, I've got 6 seconds to pull back and get on him versus 2.
Yeah.
You know, and that's what you have to go in with your mind. In my opinion, that's how it works.
Every little advantage you can get, you take it.
Especially with 5.5-year-old, 4.5-year-old, 5.5, 6.5-year-old deer, dude, they're not dumb.
Yeah, like, you know, deer like that might be the only time you've seen him.
It might be.
You know, it's blowed.
Well, you know, I told you I had that deer at 54 yards last year. It's the only time I had that deer on the hoof in front of me coming in for a shot. Only time. And I hunt 100 days out of the year. I mean, hunt.
Oh, yeah.
You know, as far as deer season, you know, I'm all over the place when it comes to that. But, like, you can hunt that many days in several different places and have no luck, which I'd say 80% of the time I am. I'm sitting in spots that are more observation than they are in the moment. And if it takes me a year or two to figure out a situation, I feel like that's better than, like you said, trenching into something that you didn't know.
Every sit, to me, is an observation.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm looking, and I'm seeing everything, you know.
So typically you want to go high. Like you're a person that sits high and wants to look first.
I don't know. I probably average, I think this tree stand, this ladder is 21 foot.
Okay.
So it's up there a little bit. But like I say, I'm kind of down on this side, so I really can't see up over the top of this field. But
you can see far enough where they're moving.
Oh yeah. No, I can definitely see.
Well, you did your homework. You know, you weren't somebody that just said, okay, whatever, I'm going to go hunt that. You know, you listen to somebody else go, hey man, dude, go in that. You listen to the old timers. You took what the old timers brought to you, and you took what a new age hunter brought to you, and you combined it, and you shot 180 something inch, 190 inch
the
deer.
Inside corner, that was from an older guy, and then like I say, using that onyx and how to use the topo, and you know, my buddy put me in that spot, because if you look at this thing on onyx, I doubt if you'd be here.
Right.
Because the lower crop fields are on the other side of the creek down here, on the other half of this 330.
Yeah.
And it's got pinch points and all that, which is a dang good spot, guarantee it. And I might look into that a little bit this year. It just depends.
If it's broke, don't fix it. You seen what I was about to say
right here, because I've seen a lot of good candidates and up and comers right here. But that's not to say
I think
that
you're in
they're
a
not
main
down there,
funnel, bud.
you know?
I think that spot's dime.
So
here, I'll switch back over. Like, I think that is. I look at what you said with that whole ordeal, and like honestly, you know, big bucks. Let's be honest. We could go all day long and say, what are you hunting over? What are you hunting over?
Right.
What are you hunting over? If you're a bow hunter and it's just from experience from other guys that I've talked to, they're going to hunt spots like that.
Yeah.
They're going to hunt spots where these bucks get secluded and don't, because bucks don't like having a bunch of stuff around them. They don't. Like, you'll have 1,000 trail cam pictures of a buck on the edge of a field at 10 o'clock at night.
Or 2 in the morning.
Or 2 in the morning. Yeah, hitting those areas. But those are the areas you got to find.
Yeah, these lower fields, man, they look prime. Don't get me wrong with that creek. And, you know, I used to hunt a lot of creek crossings and stuff. You know, I'd walk creeks and then, oh, man, look at this main, you know, always a creek crossing.
I like waterways. I'm a waterway guy.
Never really got lucky on a creek crossing, you know.
Really?
As far as big mature bucks. And I'm not saying I didn't see deer because, you know, I see deer.
You see deer, yeah.
But
big ones. People wonder how they get like that, you know, and that's because we overlook spots like that.
And there's mornings I've got up and I check the wind. It's like I can't go.
Yeah.
Because I want to sit here. I don't want to hunt anywhere else because I don't want to go anywhere else on the farm because I know this.
Right.
So there was a couple times this past season where I woke up, I stayed home. And the day I shot him, it was one of those days because the wind was coming hard out of the south. And it was good for anything that was south, but the stuff to the north of me, and them deer crossed back and forth over this ridge.
It takes one time.
And the wind was supposed to switch up. You know, it was a warm December this year.
It really was. It really was.
And
the whole season was pretty warm.
Yeah,
for the most part.
Yeah, it was really warm. And I was sitting there because I didn't go that morning because the wind was wrong, and they said the wind was supposed to change, you know, around 1.
Right.
So I was sitting there, and it's 12:30, and my daughter comes up. She's like, "I thought you was going hunting this morning." I was like, I looked outside. It's like, it's 72 degrees. I said, it's super windy. I said, the wind's out of the south, and it's supposed to turn. And I said, Chiefs are coming on, and I don't miss Chiefs. But she's like, huh. So I sit there and I thought about it. I was like, let's just go try it.
Right.
You know, I didn't usually. That's the first buck I've killed with my bow in December.
Right.
It's usually always early season.
Yep.
Opening day. You know, because they're bachelor grouped. I'm on them.
Right. So do you hunt a lot of buck beds? Not to interrupt what you're saying there, but do you hunt a lot of buck beds early season, or at least close to them?
I use my trail camera, so I know I got a pattern. When they're in a big group like that, they're pretty
easy.
You can get on them.
Yeah.
And I think if you got a big buck that's showing up early, that's your best chance to get him. You're early
okay.
season.
I agree with you. So I talk about that all the time. Everybody talks about sweet November. I love November. Okay? Don't get me wrong. I absolutely adore November. Here's my thing with it. Good luck stopping that buck if he's hot on a doe. And it's one of those little bitty things, you know, that's a potential thing that'll screw up that spot for the remainder of time.
Right.
And I think buck, you know, hunting bucks in that rut phase, you know, you watch that doe come through. Yeah, it does give you time to grab your bow, and it does give you that heads up. Doesn't mean he's going to stop. And I've done it. I've literally done it where I've been like, meh, and he doesn't stop. And in that last one, he's at 60 yards. He stopped, and he knows exactly where I am in that tree now. And so I just boogered that whole spot up. You know what I mean? For nothing. You know,
I'm a firm believer. If you got one on your target list, and you can pattern that guy, you're going to get him early. It's your best chance.
I feel like his emotions too. Like, you know, all creatures have, you know, emotions and you know, what's the word I'm looking for? I don't know, like a teenage girl. I'm just saying, like
tendencies, or
like not just tendencies, but like, you know, when they get to that rut phase, their brain's not anywhere else. It's all over the place. You know, they have. It's almost like, you know, you never know what's going to come out of your teenage daughter's mouth. You know what I'm saying? And that's the same thing with them big bucks in that rut phase. You just don't know what's going to come out of what that buck's doing.
You have no idea.
Yeah, and for me, it's like I love November, and I think it's honestly the best deer activity month.
Yeah, I was gonna say, if you like fast paced deer action, get out there early.
November. Yeah.
You know,
I like knowing when I can go in there and study, like you said, study that deer. People think I'm crazy when I tell them like my favorite day in the whole year to hunt is Halloween.
Oh no,
that is my absolute favorite day to hunt, because these bucks kind of get into that. It's for me anyway, from what I've dealt with in my career. They get into these areas where they've gone through that heat phase. They're moving into, you know, like where it was been hot all year. and they're kind of moving into those lower areas where it's a little bit cooler, and they're just kind of acclimating themselves to that cold weather. And like you're saying, this spot, that's an amazing spot for them to be getting acclimated for that cold season.
Yeah.
I guarantee you walk down in that bowl, it's going to be 10 degrees colder.
Oh, for sure. For sure.
And they're going to spend a lot of time in there because, one, they're growing that fur coat. All that's natural. All those natural things that happen with whitetails, pay attention to them. Like, do the research, because they're going to move into those patterns, I feel.
Sunny slopes, the whole 9 yards.
All of it. All of it.
It's all intel.
Yep. You could think on a map, like we talked about the onyx, and I've seen guys do it all. That is the spot. Well, it might be. Does it check the rest of the boxes when you're out there scouting it? You know what I mean? There's more than just one thing about a spot.
Oh, yeah.
You could have everything that you're supposed to have, and it still not be the spot because of a wind direction, or it's not enough of a swirling wind for a mature buck. I promise you, the big mature bucks spend most of their time in a quick getaway area that has a wind that can swirl.
Oh, yeah.
I promise you. And if you're not paying attention to those little things like you did in this situation where, you didn't go out and hunt, that's part of it, man. Go set another stand.
Well,
go set
me,
another
I like
area.
To be out there every day, but it's just, it doesn't
Sometimes
work out.
can't.
It just doesn't work out.
And so, like you were talking about that, though, back to what you're saying with them going back across that little back area and into the slough, and you're saying down below, I'm assuming with the way I'm looking at it, it's to the right of me, which is, I guess, over here would be ag down in there.
Yeah, once you cross this creek,
okay,
this drops down. This is the creek. This is all ag fields, and it was all corn. I don't know how many acres was, 120 acres of corn this past season.
So honestly, that bowl is kind of tucked in. You got big hardwoods pretty much in a bowl that goes up into an area where it'd be a great bedding, even throughout the day for bucks, down into an ag field. Do you know predominantly which way they were coming and going from, just from observation sitting in there for like everybody listening, since it's a good picture to kind of look at how the terrain works for deer. That's a great example.
This is the highest part of the way the land lays.
Okay.
This is all big ravines coming up here. Same way with down here.
Is there any peninsulas on that side, like where like water kind of washes in around and creates like a little peninsula at all or anything?
This creek does wrap around this north side a little bit, but not really. I mean, it's all pretty much like a big hump. Okay. This land kind of lays like just a big hump. Most of the deer come from down here.
So they were tucked down in there then.
Yeah, and they come through here, and there was like I say, a nice buck. He come from the east and stopped and ate.
What time frame was it though in the season?
Let's see. I didn't get in there. I didn't start hunting it till first week of October. So it was mid-October.
Okay, so he was probably roaming then, trying to find a spot to kind of settle down for the rut.
And he come from the east, come right from behind me there because I was facing west. There's a few that would pop out over here, just coming up out of that ravine. But most of the activity come out of this inside corner, right in this area here. That's why I moved down closer.
Gotcha. Did they act like they would go through that field and go towards the ag early? Yeah,
they would go down because see this field, it actually, the field kind of, there's a grove of trees in here that went down to there, and then the field kind of split.
Okay.
So they would come out of here. They would just feed and go across, and they'd disappear and go down.
Right. And so there were just natural grasses in there as far as like cockaburs and stuff like that was in there. So they're feeding on them all the way through to the main course.
Yes, they're just nothing but grass.
It's perfect.
This deer in particular, that December afternoon, 72 degrees, windy. Wind didn't change like they said it was. When I got up here, I was like, man, this wind's terrible. So, but I did sit down. I took a shower before I left.
That's
I did
enough.
all that. And I got to my stand, and like I say, I was sweating, so I reapplied.
Right.
I sit there. I think I got in there like 2:30. A small little buck come out of this from the north up here, and he had a doe. And he was grunting, just a little rag hole. And it was getting close to 5 o'clock by the time he come out. Well, no sooner he went back into the woods with his doe, I was like, man, I'm running out of shooting light. You know, in 15 minutes, I got to be done. I got to be, start getting my stuff. And I stood up, went to grab my backpack, my bow, and that this guy steps out, and I'm like, dude, he's right in my wind. I mean, it's blowing hard to the north. And
so where did he come from? So he came from that.
he come, like to say, that small little buck come up out here. I heard him coming. You know, you can hear him.
Right.
And he grunted a couple times, and he pushed that doe out and pushed her back in. Well, then the big deer, he stepped right out where he come out. And I was like,
Oh
oh,
man.
man. And I could tell how big he was, you know, a big body, just big frame. And but he was in my wind, and I was like, man, this ain't going to be good. Well, he come further out in the field than that little buck did.
He might have just escaped.
Yeah, and then he kind of angled around. He just kind of angled out in front of me here. You know, last time I ranged him was 42.
You know, it's funny you say that, where he might have even caught you there, but it wasn't pungent enough.
Yeah.
And so, like, because there's a video I'll show you when we get done on the podcast today about almost this exact same scenario. He stopped. He knew he was aware of something probably, and he just went out. He was comfortable enough in that bed where he went out and around.
Yeah. When he come out, and you know, he scanned that whole field.
Yeah, I
mean,
guarantee.
I watched him, and I was just like, when's he going to leave? Because, I mean, he knows something. Well,
right.
When he put his head down and continued to feed on, I was like, this might happen.
Yeah.
You know, so.
But you know, that's what we're talking about. You know, with that scent control.
Yeah.
I mean, it's enough, and I'm not saying that it's going to be bulletproof every time. There's, like I said, there's no possible way, unless you're in a redneck blind with an ozonics pumping the whole time, and you open that window at the last 30 seconds before you shoot that deer.
Yeah. Yeah,
there's a very minimal chance that they're going to have any kind of smell, or
Right.
or if it's even going to have time to get to wherever that deer is. Now, when we talk about the whole, you know, like you said, he had enough, but it wasn't enough to be pungent. Like, it wasn't enough to draw him off. He knew that there had been scent in that area from you probably getting up and out of your stand, so he knew something was there.
Yeah.
But he wasn't alarmed. He wasn't like, man, that smells really, because they say a deer can smell you for up to a quarter mile.
I have no doubts, because
They say a deer's nose
blow
can
on
hit
me
you
from you know, years back. It's like, how did they even
smell you
way over there?
Yep.
But you know they did.
Like we were talking about that. You drop that wind indicator in there.
Yep.
And you watch where it goes, see where it goes,
Exactly.
and then you know you can look back at that and go, man, I bet if I would have dropped a milkweed there, I bet my scent was pulling all the way down to that area.
You know, watch that thing till it hits the ground.
Yeah.
You know,
I do every time.
Don't just think that it goes that way, because you know it hits the thermal. It might be over here and then drop. So.
And I don't just, you know, I'm one of those guys. It's like you can get the milkweed for free. I mean, it's all over this area, and I mean, honestly, I've got almost a duffel bag full of it out in the car that I keep literally all year to dry. And
oh yeah,
I'd take a whole pod with me, and I'll throw a ton of it out, because it might get caught on a branch or it might get caught somewhere, and I can go, okay, well, if the wind switches and I watch that same stuff blow back at me, I'm like, all right, well, that's where that's going now, you know. And I've had that. I've had several times where I've had strong wind, and you know, we talk about terrain and hitting a ridge or hitting a thermal or a creek bed, or you know, anything can pull your scent.
Oh yeah.
It's weird. You know, you talk about, you know, all these corners. The reason those deer are using that downside corner is it's probably pulling. At one point in time in the day, it's pulling down from that area. It's rolling over.
I mean, it's just, and it probably combines right there.
Yeah,
it probably comes together right there. So it's got some, you know, there's some reason why they use it.
Yeah.
You know, so, and it's towards their benefit.
Yeah. Well, every single time it's going to be towards their benefit. Yeah. Every single time, you know, we always constantly talk about, you know, the perfect tree. The guys, get that out of your head. It doesn't exist. It don't exist. I mean, you might find one after a year or whatever. When you get into a property, I think it takes 3 years to figure it out, on average.
Yeah.
I would guess about 3 years you can get something figured out, unless you stumble upon something that you find that first set, which, like we talked about, I'd pick luck over effort any time. You know, I mean, or skill.
Be lucky than good.
Yep. And you know, I'm not saying that you're not good. That's not what I'm getting at in a situation. But you did exactly what you needed to do. You knew that there was something going to pull from that area. You stayed out of there when you needed to. It's the little bitty things. And you went to an area, you sat an observation stand pretty much that first time. You didn't know it was an observation stand, but you knew it was going to give you a broad spectrum of the area. Yeah. And then you went and adjusted.
Yeah.
And you didn't go in off that adjustment on a bad wind.
You know, that the first sit when I went in there, it wasn't to kill anything. And I wasn't even hunting anything. You know, I didn't know what was there. So basically, like I say, it's just all intel.
Yeah.
You know, it's a new place, and I have no idea what I'm doing.
Yeah, when you told me that you didn't dive into that farm after that deer, and I was like, "Wait, what?" And you're like, "No, I didn't dive into it because I didn't want to mess up what I thought could have been a possibility of bedding or an area." And I'm like, "Well, I would have done the same." In my mind, I'm like, "Why did I even question that? Because I'd have done the same thing."
10 years ago, I would have known every inch of this property.
Yeah, before you even before you even got to hunt it. But see, I'm a big believer in that too. I mean, you can go in off season, and you don't know what a buck. And that's another thing when you get into a new piece of property, and that's kind of why public I think is so hard for people to kind of wrap their head around. And when you get into a new piece, you really don't know what anybody's done in the past with it. You have no idea what hunters screwed up, what his patterns have created for other deer for the future.
Changes
You know,
everything.
it 100%. You know, and I've gone into properties and hunted properties, and and been like, I would hunt there, and they're like, "Oh, I've been hunting out of this tree across the way here for 10 years," and and I'm like, "Those are good deer," and they'll show you pictures of good deer. It's like, "All right, man, well, I'm gonna go hunt over there." You know what I mean? Yeah. And they're like, "Well, why would you want to go there when I know there's deer moving through?" I was like, "Well, if you're not hunting there and you're hunting there every year, I'm going over where that's at because I know that nobody's over there."
Oh yeah.
I know that nothing's getting bothered over there.
I still get to hunt my old family farm, which is the one that's in Columbia there.
Oh, gotcha. Yeah.
I have a tree. I have a stand that's like Old Faithful.
Yeah.
You know, if I want to, fill the freezer.
Yeah.
Or if somebody wants a deer, I can go there and pretty much get a deer. It's like guaranteed.
Yeah.
But.
And how many years has that farm been hunted now?
Oh man, I've hunted it since '89.
Yeah. So you've already been through that phase of figuring out what it was, and now you got. And don't get me wrong, I have a stand. I do too. I've actually moved a tree over this year because I called it a sketch tree, and I only hunted it twice. Yeah. Sketchy tree, dude. Like I'm telling you, like it's a great spot, but it was a great tree. It's not fun to get in. It's weird. It's not fun. It's like, and unless I have intel in that area, I won't go. But I could kill a doe out of it every single day. Like literally every set I see, I always see deer. And I talk about that with other guys too. I'm like, I've got those Old Faithful stands too. But when you get into stuff like me and you do, where we're hunting a specific deer, and people are like, well, I don't hunt a specific deer. I'm like, you passed 145, 150 inch deer. My friend, you are hunting a specific deer. Like whether you want to think it or not, you're hunting a specific deer.
Just me not having a lot of history with this deer, but I knew there was a deer that had a big velvet ball.
Right.
Didn't know it was that, but and then finding this shed, so I knew the potential for good deer was there.
And you got lucky with finding that shed too, in that sense of going, I know that he's comfortable in that area, comfortable enough when he's agitated and losing his antlers. That's another little thing.
Oh yeah,
agitation. I talk about emotions, with deer and their behavior all the time. When they're in that, rubbing that velvet off. And, all that's got to be frustrating. That'd be like having the itchy skin or, whatever the case. When you get poison oak or poison ivy, you're miserable, dude. You're a completely different person.
Yeah.
Or you got a headache. You're a completely different person, And then I don't see much different with deer, I don't think. I think they go to spaces that they want to be left alone.
Yeah.
And so when you find that, man, you just found a huge key of where he's spending some time. Because, if he's down there and he's agitated – and he's losing his antlers in that area, typically he's probably going to be back there in the shed phase. He's going to be there when he's shedding his velvet because he's in a comfortable area that he knows he's not being pestered. And so those are huge intel takes from when you're able. I feel like if you can find where your deer are shedding for the majority, and if you can find an area where kind of similar close to a bedding or cedars or any of that type of deal where they can lay low. In your sense, you had that downside corner. Yeah. They were there, you know what I mean? And you were able to pick up on that fast. And that comes with age hunting. Oh, yeah. You know what I mean? As we adapt as hunters, we can get to the point where Onyx really starts being our best friend.
Yeah. When I was younger, would I have hunted that spot where I was at? Probably not.
You would have been down there in that ag.
I would have been down by the ag, right on the edge of that creek.
Yep.
I love hunting creeks.
I'm a river bottom guy, dude. I can't step away from a good river bottom farm. It's hard.
Did I have a lot of luck, being younger and hunting those? Mm-hmm. Not really. I killed deer.
Yeah.
But I guess that was the goal while I was out there anyway.
Well, yeah. I mean, I the same way. I like to fill the freezer.
But like I say, I'm not afraid to ask somebody.
No, not at all.
If I want opinions, after I shot that deer, I wasn't going to go look for that deer until I had somebody look. I had another second opinion on my arrow.
Right.
So I called my buddy, and he met me at my house, and he's like, "Oh, dude, you smoked that deer."
Yeah.
But if he would have said, "Ooh,"
You let him lay.
we're not going.
And see, that's where I screwed up
You know,
last year, man.
As
I did
much
that
as
bad.
I want to put my hands on him, as much as I want to get this recovery over with, I don't want to push him.
Yeah.
You know,
Patience,
But-
dude. That is
it's hard.
that is the hardest
It's
part of
hard.
hunting, man. In my opinion, that is the hardest aspect to learn. And I mean, that's anything in life. Patience in general is
it's
hard to learn as a
hard.
human being. But like the more patient you are, which I should have been last year, I'd be sitting behind a 160 inch, 170 inch 10. You've seen a picture of
Oh,
him,
yeah.
and literally, that picture was tomorrow, and that deer had, I don't know, he was huge. He was a huge deer, and I knew he was. I had my buddy Chad come up. We looked at the arrow, or we didn't even have the bolt. I take that back. We looked at the blood that was next to where he was at, and it was a 36-yard shot roughly, but it was uphill according to. And I'm like, okay, there's a possibility he ducked and hit no man's land, but there's also a possibility that I clipped something in there where it was perfect.
Yeah.
And he bled 736 yards. We tracked with the OnX tracker. 2 beds. After that first bed, I should have backed out. I should have been like, nope, we're going to push him. We had a huge rainstorm coming in. And so I thought to myself, man, he's bleeding good enough. Maybe if I push him a couple more times, he'll just expire off of, which was stupid. I screwed up. I should have never done that. I should have let him lay in that crab clay. I should have let him die overnight.
Yeah.
And then went and grid searched him. Obviously bringing a dog probably wasn't going to do nothing after the rain because it started pouring down rain.
But even if you would have, and you would have bumped him the next day,
You could have.
you just never know.
Yeah, and that's what I mean by that patience, man. It's like I should have been more patient, and I know I should have, because the takeaway from that for me was and I've been hunting a long time. I've been fortunate enough to have uncles and my dad and everybody take me out whenever chance I could get.
Oh yeah.
And I'm still this age doing those dumb things. It's like if you think you've got everything figured out about a deer, go check yourself because you don't.
No.
It's like I had my thing. If I were to say I had to learn anything about hunting deer, the one thing that constantly kicks my butt every year is patience, dude. Patience beats me up because I get it in my head that that buck's got a chance of moving out during the rut. I got to get in there and hunt him. No, just let him be comfortable.
Yeah.
And let him get into a phase like you did that exact same thing and it paid off.
Yeah.
You're sitting behind him and I'm not. You know what I'm saying? Like I should be sitting behind a giant and yet, I'm here again. And there's only one person to blame in that situation. It's yourself. But you
Right.
got to be willing to take that criticism that and use it for good, not criticize yourself. You're gonna have moments in your life all the way through your hunting career that you're gonna go back and go, man, dang it, like why did I do that?
Oh yeah. I mean, there's always that.
And you've got it kind of in a system almost. Once you figure your own system out, you don't necessarily have to apply it to every situation. When you go hit a new piece of property, but if you got a system that worked on one, kind of like you said, look at that topo on that other property, and go, is there another spot similar to that?
Yeah.
And if and more times out of none, there is similar spots, and guess what? Those deer are dang near doing the same thing there.
Yeah.
And I've noticed that over the years, and that's why I talk about creek beds and river bottoms and stuff like that, because those are typically things that I like to try to kind of hone in on. If there's a pinch around a lake, son, you're gonna be in it around that lake
because travel corridors and stuff like that, man. If you can get on a hot one.
And what's your feeling? We talk about that whole pinch points and doing those things, pertaining to the time of the season. We talk, and that's something that not a lot of people talk about. I don't think, you said earlier you like early season because then bucks are a little bit easier to pattern. And I agree with you. I think they are.
It's just
But what type of terrain are you looking for in that early season? Is what I'm asking. Like if you were to look for a dynamite spot or a spot that you would pick early season, what's your characteristics?
I've always hunted woods.
Right.
I mean, this was the first year that I really set up on the edge of a field, and not even a crop field. Most of the time I'm in the timber. So, but, finding, a ridge, acorns, whatever, that's a pretty hot commodity.
Yeah. And, especially going into rut. I think.
I always hunted, the timber and acorns and stuff like that because I really didn't have the ag fields around until I got this piece.
Right.
This family lets me hunt, which thank you very much.
Yeah,
Uh,
no, yeah.
Can't say that enough. But so now, I'm still hunting the timber.
Right, right,
I
right.
still can't get away from this timber. I don't know why.
And I talked about that last week with a buddy or with Caleb, and I actually took him out to my farm, and I told him, I said, hey man, look, well, it's not my farm, it's my parents' farm, but thank God they hunt it and all that good stuff. But we went out there and I took him to a spot, and it was a main bedding area. Because like you're saying, because Chad always tells me, get off the field edge, man. And I'm like, man, I've got so many good pinches on field edges that it's hard for me to walk away from the field edge because I've got really good timber. It's spaced out super nice on that property. I mean, I could literally house a buck in each little timber spot on that property. And I've tried to accommodate that because there's a fresh creek that runs through all 3 spots of timber. They're all it's like a giant maze. They're all in between ag. There's fields of ag that go through the whole thing. And then we got a huge lake that's on there, and bucks typically run them does. And come November, them bucks are running them does the backside of that lake, pinching them up against that lake. And so, early season though, I'm in, clover patches that are on transition areas between the ag. Yeah. I hunt that, and then, so like when my buddy says, get off the field edges, I'm like, dude, I'm not necessarily in the field edge all the time, but in certain parts of the season, I think I've tried to factor that in. What is the right spot to be? Obviously a river bottom behind a lake during the rut, you're going to have a really good chance of getting a buck to push a doe into there. Yeah. Peninsula, really good chance of pushing a doe in there. But during the summertime, he's probably not going to be in there much. He's going to be out there doing bachelor buck things. So therefore, you're talking about, right off that field edge. Yeah. When me and Caleb went out there, it was 15 feet. There was just a beat down trail that runs all the way around that ag field in the timber, 15 yards off or 15 feet off, Yeah. And that's what so it sounds like, you like to try to do, or at least that spot that you killed him in was not super far off in there. Yeah. But it was enough. And you talk about access too, it was enough access to get into that spot without being blowing out things. And you're just in that little transition where they're comfortable.
Yeah. Even, with me walking down that logging road, like I said, and it opens up into that field where I ended up killing him, I never went out in that field.
Well, obviously,
never
ever.
I always cut
through the woods,
down to my stand at an angle there. Never once.
So when you're walking down through there on top, just to clarify for everybody, kind of give a visual. So when you're walking down through there, the field's obviously up here, you got the hump here, and then that bowl settles down in there. So you're walking down the downside of that bowl. Mm-hmm. Yeah, all the way too, so they can't see you out there. Yeah, that's what we talk about.
If there's anything in the field,
it can't see you.
It can't see me. So I had that logging road, which was super quiet to walk down. It was great. I even took the sticks out of there, that branches,
right.
For getting in there in the mornings. But I get to probably 40 yards from that field, and I would dive off.
Right.
And then come around and up in.
And I think that's something that I need to focus on. I've really sat a lot last year in the farm that I hunt for the most part of the year. I mean, I have probably 4 or 5 farms that I go across, whether they're private or public. Honestly, I mean, I consider a lot of the public that's out there now, they're just old farms bought up anyway. But there's 4 or 5 spots, that I felt like I was really getting blown out of because the access of it was terrible. And like this year, I've really kind of honed in on it. It's going to take me longer to get to a spot. But I feel just from watching deer in the previous years, and what they do and where they bed, and they're really not bedding far off of food, and they're not bedding in areas that are super far away from people.
Right.
They're not and that's weird to me. Like when I think about that, but they're really not bedding far from noise.
Where you least expect them most of the time.
Exactly. I do. Me and Caleb. He said, I've got a farm that. He goes, I just have a hard time hunting sometimes because it's close to a road. And I'm like, but is there giants in there? He's like, dude, there's a good buck in there every year. And I'm like, I think some of these bucks literally just get used to it. Like they know they're going to be frantic. We go back and talk about mood again, and emotions. I think some of these giant bucks, they get tired of having to try to find the perfect spot. And so it's almost like me and you, we get annoyed by something. We're okay with turning on some music and getting kind of lost and moving on from it. These bucks want a space that they don't have to hear outside noise other than a car going by, so they can just be in their own head and do their own damn thing. I think that is something people need to hone in on like crazy.
If you're around heavy ag, farm, tractors and all that, I sit in that deer stand and I listen to the lady and her daughter feed every morning, and they're yelling and screaming and driving a gator around.
Yep.
And I'm up in a tree and there's
But
deer.
he knows they're there.
There's deer around me. They don't care.
Yep.
They don't even bother them. I mean, they're screaming, calling their cows, and
Mm-hmm.
deer. They just get so used to, and then nobody's been back there to pressure them.
Exactly.
So they know.
They know where it's just like us. We put a pin on Onyx where we think we know these bucks, or that we from observation stands we put a pin on them. They're doing the same. They're taking a mental pin and going, well, I know they're there, and I know if I walk up there, I'm going to hear them, and I know they're going to be there. But if I'm down here, they're not down here.
Yeah.
There was a giant buck that was on my grandparents' farm for a few years, and my cousin had pictures of it and stuff like that. Just ridiculous deer. Stayed right behind the house. 30. I mean, he said it wasn't but 300-400 yards behind the house, and there's all these other amazing spots this deer could be, but he was comfortable there.
Yeah.
It's like getting close to your enemy.
Oh yeah, and you talk to people that has something like that, and they're like, "Oh, that's my pet deer." He lives right there.
Yeah.
50 yards from the house. It's like,
Well, it's like them Sequin guys.
Can you actually pet him?
Right.
You can't pet him. He's not your pet.
Yeah. You talk about we talk about that all the time. You look at them Sequin dudes. I don't know have you ever watched any of their stuff? If you haven't, get on there and look at them, dude. It's called Sequin. These guys hunt in town.
Are they
pretty much
Georgia?
Yep. Dude's killing 200-inch deer.
Oh man.
He said there was a video I watched one time, and it was and I had a buddy. I was like, I don't know if I'm interested in like hunting in town deer or hunting deer. And he sent me a video. The first video of it I watched. This guy literally is sitting in his stand, looks over, and there's a guy putting in chlorine in his pool. Like he could see him 60 yards from his stand, and the guy waved him down, and he is like, "Can you help me put some chlorine? I can't lift the bucket." He's like, "Dude, I literally got out of my deer stand, walked over to this guy's backyard, poured the chlorine in his pool, got back up in my deer stand, and killed a 200-inch deer like 15 minutes later."
Yeah, them urban deers are just
them urban
pockets.
I've never done it. I want to dive into it so bad because I've never done it.
Yeah.
But I think it'd be cool, man, to get in there.
Oh, my a buddy of mine, in Columbia.
Yeah.
He was doing that, and then over behind like Memorial Stadium.
Okay. Yeah.
And he got permission to hunt just this little hillside, and it just happened to be just a pocket, and he killed a stud.
Really?
Urban deer.
And
just crazy.
And that's what I'm saying. It's like, why do we focus on all these places that we think a deer would be based off of our movements?
Right.
That giant that I had last year in there, that Evander buck, his bed was 150 yards away from the camper.
Yeah.
Like literally, I had his bed pinned. I knew where he was living. I just screwed up and got too close. You know what I mean? And I went. Actually, I didn't really screw up. I can and can't, because I feel like there's a few times where he was coming in camera wise, and I had him on a pattern pretty much, but I got anxious with that quest hunt, and I'm like, I need to get in there and try to get after him. I'm in that same mindset as you sometimes, with the whole getting in there early season though, and I felt like I didn't pay attention to enough of a swirling wind, or I checked when I got into that stand, and that's just a common mistake that I feel like a lot of people do make when you're out there in that stand, and this is from personal, mistake myself that I've learned from. I threw that wind indicator out there, seen what it did, and I was like, all right, cool. Like you said, that wind didn't change when that buck was in there, and therefore you didn't even check it. But then after you got to thinking about it, you're like, man, I need to check that wind every 45 minutes to an hour or whatever, because it can change at any moment.
Oh, yeah.
And that's where I think I screwed up on that buck, because he started coming in behind me on the neighbors where he wasn't really hunted. And like I said, he's a deer. He's one of those deer. I mean, you've seen him. He's one of those deer that it's a bummer. And it's personal. It's for me. It's like I screwed up myself and I own it. And that's another thing, guys. Own your mistake, because a mistake is a learning process. If you want it to stay a mistake, it'll be a mistake because you didn't learn from it.
Yeah.
If you learn from it, it's not a mistake anymore.
No.
And I'm a firm believer in that. And just because you screwed up in that sense, man, doesn't mean anything. Because you could come back, like you said, when you came in there after that buck and the way that area was set up, and you seen him at 30 yards, or you seen that bucks were moving and deer were moving in that spot, you didn't think twice about it. You said, no, and you weren't afraid of it. You went, I've learned from previous times that it's okay to move 30, 40 yards to get yourself in that sweet spot.
Yeah, because I'm going to
It's worth a shot.
I can sit here and watch them from this spot, or I can get down there and
take a shot,
get within range,
Yeah.
and my opportunities gets a lot better.
Yeah.
So yeah, move.
I say that all the
You know?
time, and I do a lot of ground hunting too. A lot of people don't do a lot of ground hunting. I've kind of got into that ground hunt with a crossbow with my kids and buddies that aren't super experienced with bow hunting. I've had more fun hunting on the ground with a crossbow than I've had in a tree in the last 10 years, you know what I mean, or whatever. And it's getting on that ground. Dude, I highly recommend it. We'll have to get together and do some buck nest in a ghillie suit, because I'm telling you, that's a different animal.
We can do it.
When you're 10 yards and you're watching the steam come out his nose and he's 10 yards in front of you, I'm telling you, your heart will be pounding out of your chest. I got a video I have to show you where I had with a buddy of mine named Eric. That dude, he was his first deer ever. You know what I mean? And he was 110 or 115 inch deer. Nothing crazy. And we seen a big one. We got his whole experience that first time coming in was like unheard of. We had bucks fighting 60, 70 yards from us. And the dead of night when we were walking in, you know, we were coming in and all of a sudden, blah, 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 blah. And I'm like, oh, crap. And I sat down and there was only about as wide as this room of timber between us and that other field, but it was all cedar patch. So you couldn't really see on the other side. But dude, he's like, what is that? I'm like, dude, that is 2 bucks just getting after it. He's like, should we stop here? I'm like, no, we need to go. While they're doing that, we need to get into that transition where they're going to come back from. And he's like, really? And I'm like, yeah, I guarantee you. We sat up 40 yards from what I would have considered a perennial. I mean, there was all kinds of little, like you said, down that logging road, all the way out to that field edge. That's exactly how that was, all the way down that lane. And then there was a big perennial at the end. And that's another thing. If you're on a farm, guys, and you've got that connect the dots, that's what I like to say. Connect those dots, get to the perennial, and set on the perennial. You know, and if it's easy access to be able to do that, you know, great. If not, figure out a way to get to that perennial without going down that scrape line. It's a huge helper.
Oh boy, yeah.
Because everything, when we looked at that, here I'm gonna go back real quick. When you look at this, you had that perennial right there. All that action was around that perennial.
Yep.
All of it. Like every single part about that perennial was probably the biggest key in killing that deer.
Yeah. Was
that perennial scrape.
Yep.
Him knowing out there, coming out there, looking over that field, he knew right when he popped out, he was gonna look right at that perennial.
Yep.
And if there was any buck in there, he knew he was going to be in a moment. Yep. If there was any doe, he knew he could put a check mark in the book. I'll come back for you in November. Oh yeah. Into October. Those perennials and lay of the land, guys. Check into it. You find a perennial, find a way to hunt over it.
Exactly.
And that's what we did with, his buck. That deer, dude. After they got done, we got set up. We weren't there. I think it was 7. I want to say around 7:45. And we were done. Yeah. His first time in the woods ever. Got to hear bucks fight 60, 70, 80 yards from us. Then he got to shoot his first deer ever, which was a nice little buck.
That already gets you hooked.
Oh, dude. But I'm telling you, man, my heart was pounding so hard when that deer was up there. He was stomping. He was looking right at us. And he couldn't quite figure us out. We were in a shaded area. Sun was behind us coming up over the hills. And that's another little trick, guys. If you got sun behind you, try to keep that sun behind you. Not in front of you, behind you. Because I think that's really kind of what saved us in that situation, because he was close.
That's kind of why I like hunting timber, too, because I've always got a backdrop, because I'm a big guy.
Right.
And it's, trees average this size.
Yeah.
Well, I'm this wide.
Right.
So.
That's why I got to get you on this WTF cam over here, man. Get your silhouette. I'm telling you, dude, that stuff is so wild looking.
Oh, it is. It's cool looking.
It's definitely, I'm super excited. Because, after October, you ain't got no leaves on the trees anyway. So you're just looking like a dang brush pile up in the tree, I guess.
So you need that. You need some of that big pattern
breakout. You need those patches of white. And I think from what I've seen in videos with that stuff, not just trying to put a sales pitch on it. At the same time, like, I've seen that white shimmer in the same way that it would on the backside of whenever the sun's hitting that pattern, that white is just like the white would be as that sun shifts. Mm-hmm. And I think that's kind of a big key in that camo that for me that I've just noticed. I haven't got to hunt with it yet, but I'm so excited to get out there and do some saddle hunting and some other things that makes it hard to find a way to keep silhouetted or keep, like you said, in timber. After October we ain't got no leaves, man. You're out there and you have to blend in with the treetops. I don't know if you remember a camo by Scentlock called Vertigo. It was like real white, almost looked like snow gear,
Snow.
but it wasn't. It was just white in the branches. And I hunted with it for, shoot, it was my favorite camo. I actually just sold that set this year. I had it for 6-7 years. Killed a lot of does with that. And those are honestly, the does are the hardest ones to fool. Them nannies are the hardest ones to fool.
Trophy does.
Dude, I fooled a ton of them with that camo pattern on. And I was in trees, like you said, at the top. You know, it might be this big around the bottom. Get up at the top, you've only got that much.
Yeah.
You know, and so finding those things, like I said earlier, paying attention to the natural things and finding the little things that will help you gain, you know, pattern wise. You hunt big woods because you like that silhouette.
Yep.
You know, I hunt mid ridge. The only reason I hunt mid ridge is because if he's down below the ridge, I've got a backdrop looking up because I'm not at the very top. And if he's up on top of that ridge and he's looking down, he's definitely not seeing me there either.
Right.
And so, you know, all the little things that kind of come together that make a hunt successful, and then we get to see it, you know, like this on this property. You know, we literally just talked about almost every one of those things coming together, but that's what you need. That spot, you got that ag over there all day long. And I'm telling you, during November, that ag's going to be insane.
Oh yeah,
it's going to be, and why hunt over an 8-foot span anyway? Right. You know what I mean, or whatever it is that the corn's off of whatever field edge you're on.
Yeah,
I mean, you're limiting yourself by doing that. And that position in that spot, dude, the world is yours at that point. You know.
Yeah, and all the deer movement that it seemed to be like here was kind of early.
So
they're going to the ag, but they're coming out of beds way back here in this timber. So everything was, 2:30, 3 o'clock. If I wasn't in my stand by 2:30, there was deer in that field.
Right. In the grass field or whatever was in their natural grass field. Yeah.
So it was all early, except for him. He comes but
he's an old buck, dude.
Now, but
and he's an old buck too. Yeah. He's been around the block. So and I have noticed that in big bucks. Good luck getting him to not be nocturnal, but when he screws up,
if you're hunting down here on this ag, well, you're probably not going to see these till right at.
You may not even see them.
Might not even see them. 5 minutes before shooting light's over.
Yep.
Well, that
don't give you much time to adjust.
No good, So I like it. I like being a back away.
We'll go back to it real quick. I mean, and like you said, these little fingers that are out here, and like everything kind of dumps off these. And not only is that spot good for that perennial area and the way it lays out, but big bucks, like I went in and changed a trail camera yesterday and I jumped a big buck that I kind of bummed about that I jumped him, but he did. I don't think it was me. I had 2 turkeys fly up like 5 foot from me with 2 little pullets. They were in tall grass and they landed dang near on him.
Really?
Yeah. Like when they went back down in the tall grass, 50, 60 yards from me, they almost landed on him. And I knew he heard it. But I think when they went to skim through the grass, he heard something, what he thought it was a coyote or whatever it was, and then he got up and ran. I don't think he was worried about me, but it's set up like that, where it was real tall grass like that, and it comes to around this little bend just like that. Oh, yeah. And there's things that dump off, and that allows, a big buck to be over here. It allows a big buck to be over here. It allows a big buck to be down here on this bowl. I mean, these big bucks, these mature bucks, from what I've understood and what people have told me over the years, they do find their small little areas. And as the older they get, they shrink.
Yeah, I don't doubt that.
And I have people that tell me all the time, well, it's impossible to have 4 mature bucks on 150 acres. I'm like, no, it's not. No, it's not. No. If these bucks can get into an area where they feel comfortable and that land lays good for them to have their own little 3-acre plot or 4-acre plot, perfect.
Well, that buck, just to tell you, something broke him. So he's not fighting an average size probably. I mean, there's something that's going to challenge him there.
Oh, 100%.
So, yeah, there's more than one mature buck on that 330 that I'm on.
And dude, I bet you there's bucks that not even on your radar.
Oh yeah,
that are slipping back in through there that you wouldn't think.
Yeah.
And that they say that's like the hardest part about hunting a mature buck is, man, they really do shrink their home size. But at the same time, it's kind of an advantage because it only takes 1 or 2 times to kind of figure out where he's wanting to be. And if you can get trail cameras in there on transition areas like you got, it gives you an intel at least what direction he's come from. And then you look at that kind of general direction where he's coming from to and from in the morning. Because I think morning patterns are probably the most important, but not my favorite to hunt. Right. If that makes sense. I like hunting the evening more than I like mornings.
Yeah.
And that kind of basis per farm, I guess. If I've got a good way to get into a spot that's a bed early, like a peninsula or, you know, a waterway or around a lake. That's literally what I like to hone in on if I'm going to hunt that type of property. I'll get into the backside of a peninsula where there's ag way out here. I'll pull in behind that peninsula, get up in there while he's not in his bed, and then when he comes back from feeding, that's the most dynamite way, personally, that I've found to hunt in the morning.
In the mornings, yeah.
In the evening, it's the exact opposite, and that's why I like hunting evenings. You don't have to find a ridiculous path to your. They're already bedded.
Yeah,
they're already doing their things in those little drop offs, like you were talking about.
Yeah, like that first farm I used to, you know, the old family farm that I used to hunt. You would, in the mornings was great. So you know you could slip in through the woods. Yeah. And get you your stand because they were still out in the food.
Field. Yeah.
And then, you know, they'd start filtering back. So mornings there were good. Evenings at this new place where he come from is better.
Better, yeah. And it makes sense that it would be better there.
Yeah.
Because, you know, of them being in those little pockets, like you found a way to get into those. You found a way to get into that without much effort as far as screwing it up. You know what I mean? You're not walking all the way down to that egg. Me personally, on that place there that you got, I would just, if it ain't broke, don't fix it.
Yeah, you know, I could get to these ags. I could pull off the highway. Yeah. And then, you know, but her ag field goes all the way to the highway. Okay. So I could, there's a pull in down there.
I would, if you're going to hit it, looking at the terrain myself, if you're going to hit it, then bucks during the rut, a lot of them, at least on my farm that I've been able to, you know, fortunate enough to hunt, you know, it seems like, once they cut that corn, doesn't matter the whole or corn or beans or whatever. It doesn't matter where they were at that point on that farm. They're going to go snag it because they know for 3 weeks they've got good nutrition. Yep. And so in that aspect, I guarantee you're going to see a giant during the rut, moving in and out of those ag fields down there in that bottom. Or is it a bottom or is it?
Oh, it's bottom.
It's a bottom.
It's
so
bottom.
that's even better.
Like I say, creek runs through there. It's creek bottom.
And, you know, I always talk about like fall, summer, and winter homes, you know, which I'm a firm believer in with deer moving around patterns and being able to kind of figure out where these deer move, but also on the ag that's in, you know, like I know corn years are better for the farm that I hunt by far. And I'm not trying to down anybody that hunts over beans during the early season. It just so happens to be on that farm that the duration that I've been able to hunt it, the beans are always out super early, like super early. And so I know that window's short, and then trying to find a wind that works in that short window just doesn't work as good. And then you're really trying to figure it out. I mean, luckily there's enough oak trees, and I put in food plots during those years that are bean years, because I kind of try to have that extra in there. Now corn year, it turns that place into a maze, and you can kind of figure out those corridors based off of what the corn makes them do, because they don't like walking through it. You know, they'll go around it if they want. You know, or whatever the case may be. So then it switches that whole terrain up. But it also switches that summertime, fall time, wintertime bed. So what I'm hoping, like I told you earlier today, you know, what I'm hoping is a boy comes in and he leaves whenever they cut the beans on the neighbors this year. He'll probably summer there. He'll probably be there till September, October, I'd imagine. I may not even get a picture of him unless he's just coming in to check, which is kind of what I'm hoping. Yeah. He just kind of coming in, okay, what bucks are in here? This isn't my home, but it's, you know, and that'll probably happen around from periodically times on that farm around into September. And I'm hoping that with it being corn this year, he's going to come back to that maize and settle in for that nutrition that's going to be there later on. Yeah. And those are things that I look at. That's just for that farm anyway. Yeah. Apply that. You know, when you go to hunt that field, that bottom field, you know dang well once that's cut, they're going to be down there.
Well,
but
you know, in your mind, you have a plan.
100%.
If it doesn't come to fruition, then that's hunting.
Try something else. Yeah, and that's everybody gets discouraged with that. I'm with you on that, man. If it doesn't happen, okay, dude. Then you didn't fail. You picked one out of the 3 or 4 things that you thought was going to be, and you went with that. But now you can check that box and go, okay, I didn't work that year on that, so let me try something else. And if that doesn't work, trial and error, man. Do it.
That's hunting.
Don't be discouraged. Yeah. You know, it's not killing. It's called hunting.
Stay persistent.
Yes.
You know, it's something that you love to do because it's a thrill in my life to go whitetail hunting, bow hunting, hands down. So yeah, I put in my time. I don't put in as much as some other people do. You know, there's people that just go crazy.
I hunt a lot. You know? I'm a guy that goes to places and I'm like, do you talk about anything other than deer? And I'm like, Not really. You know what I mean? But I
Oh,
love
man.
that.
No, it's great, man. And we gotta, you gotta have guys like that just live and
I
breathe
live
it,
it.
And
I was, I,
'cause-
I was telling the wife yesterday about Lee and Tiffany. When you hear that story, they moved out to Iowa with nothing, and people are like, "You guys are crazy." And he's like, "No, I had a dream.
yeah, no, it's
Cleanse your soul, man.
right.
Go in them woods and cleanse your soul. I promise you, you won't
Oh,
walk
that's
out
my
of there
therapy.
upset."
That's
I say it all the time.
that's my therapy.
100%.
I go out there, cell phone's not ringing. I shut it. I shut the ringer off on it, and if I want to get on there and text my hunting buddy, that's what I'm usually doing. You see anything? You doing this? But yeah, that's my therapy. That's my time.
Yeah.
And everybody's got to have their thing.
And some people like to go to Mexico. I like to go freeze my butt off in the
I'm
woods.
not a beach guy.
Yeah, no, neither am I.
Give me some woods.
Yeah.
I'll take them.
Yeah.
But
And that's something that of all the things that go on in this crazy world we got going on. Even right now, more so than ever. We've got a lot of things going wrong.
oh yeah.
Hunting's not just hunting is therapy. It's food. It's stress reliever because of food and other things.
Oh yeah.
Tell me that tell me something better than a bacon wrap backstrap on a smoker. It's hard to beat, and brown sugar on it. Boy, it's hard to beat.
You're killing me.
Yeah, you know what I'm saying? Like it's just and the people that don't go out there and experience that, dude, you don't have to kill a big deer, man. Me and you have said it time and time again, dude. What gets your heart going? Gets your heart going. It doesn't matter.
Yeah, no, and
you got to start somewhere with it.
I got my first bow in '87.
I bet that was fun to
I
pull.
was just a young kid, and well, how many years later is this to hit that pinnacle that I'm at now?
Right.
You know,
I mean, would you say you're at that point where you're hunting specific deer? I feel you are, but I know you say that you get excited about that 150 inch, which I do too, but
I don't know. I'm more of an opportunist.
Okay.
If there's something that triggers me about that deer, I don't care if he's 147. I don't care if he's 135.
Like you said, the double drop.
Yeah.
He's 140 inch double drop. Okay, that's the characteristic that I like.
It's whatever you look at that deer, and if you're happy with that deer, that's your deer.
Yeah, 100%.
I don't degrade anybody for shooting a 120.
I don't. Me either.
I don't. Hey man, great. I'm happy for you. That to me is a fluke.
Right.
In my eyes.
Right.
I'm just fortunate enough to been there and had a chance to take him.
Right.
But it's deer hunting is whatever you like.
100%. 100%.
I mean, there's people out there that say, "Oh, I'm not going to shoot nothing below 190." Well, they're going to hunt for a long time.
Yep.
And they're going to have a lot of time in the woods and nothing to show for it.
Yep.
I'm a firm believer. If you see something in that deer and the opportunity and it just feels right,
do it.
That's hunting.
100%. Do it. Do you? You know what I mean? Like I tell people all the time, I honestly have more fun getting behind a camera with somebody anymore than I do almost hunting myself. I mean, don't get me wrong, I love hunting myself, but if that's just for instance, if you were to call me and say, "Hey man, I got a 180 inch deer down here. When you want to come down here and sit behind me?" Yeah, I'll cancel my plans for the weekend. I will come make that memory last forever for you, and I get to share it as well. Just because I shoot it, I get to go. If I would have been with you on that moment, dude, we'd have fell out of that damn tree. You know what I'm saying? It would have been like, oh.
If it wasn't for my wife calming me down on the phone, I probably would have.
No, I'll do my best. I've got some slots open too for this season, and I've got some really nice high end cameras to get down. I'll come down there if you got some good stuff and you got a time that you're going to be in there.
Call away.
I'll come down and get behind you, and we'll hunt together.
I'll do whatever.
Yeah, we need to get on some public land together this year too. And I've been telling Dalton too. I mean, I know you know Dalton Wood at Rack Daddy Minerals and stuff. He's coming up for a public land. We're going to get together, eat some dinner, and probably go do some public land scouting and stuff like that. And dude, that's my favorite thing,
I'd
man.
like to go do that just to scout some public land. Just
come up, man. We're gonna get on the boats.
Kind of get the feel for it, I never really dove into that thing.
That's a perfect opportunity because there's a lot of land there. It's 28,000, and I may be wrong. 28,000 or some odd. I don't know. It's a lot. It's a lot of acreage that surrounds that lake. It's core ground. That's going to be really fun, and I think he picked a really good spot this year for that because we're having a good rain season, so the ag's going to be prime.
Good.
This whole season is gonna be.
Should be good.
It's gonna be one to remember. I'm hoping that me and you are sitting
I'm
behind
hoping
Giants, some Giants this year.
2021 was pretty good. But
It's
I'm still looking
no.
forward to 2022.
At 2021 looks. If your 2021 looks like this, guys, I hate saying it, but you may not ever pass that. You may not ever have a better one than that right there. But if you got the mindset that Charlie does when it comes to 140 incher, if he's got that characteristic, keep that in your brain.
Yeah.
Because these are these right here are 1 in a million. You know what I mean?
Every deer is a trophy.
Yep.
In my book, and shoot, I got 130 on the wall that I'm just as proud of as
Yeah.
all the rest of them.
Yeah.
It was just a time in my life where I got memories of me and that deer.
Yeah, that's another thing.
Yeah.
I talk about it all the time. Making those memories. And like for me, my favorite hunts of the year are when I go with my kids, my girls.
Oh yeah,
Those are my absolute favorite. The funniest thing, that big 140 Lily, my middle child, as you met earlier, she had that deer at 40 yards for 5-10 minutes, and she had her AR. She'd been practicing all year, and she got her headphones on, and and we got by the ones that she can hear me talk but can't hear the concussion of the bang. And I'm talking to her, and she's like, "Oh man, he's so beautiful." And I was like, "Well, get him in the scope." She's like, "Oh yeah." Then she'd look up. She's like, "Man, he's so big." I'm like, "Get in the scope, girl." Like, what do you? And she's like, "Oh, okay." And she's like, "I can't find him." I'm like, "Just do your best, And in my brain, I'm like, "This deer is walking all day long." But and then he did. He ended up walking off and getting to an area where she really didn't have a shot. And she looks over at me for a second, and I was like, "Dude, how was that?" And she's like, "That was insane." You got to see her. I'd let her hold that your buck here. When she got here, and that kid's eyes were like, "Geez," like. And I tell her all the time, like, "Dude, that's what it's about." And they think we're hunting. We're spending time, and that's my favorite part about whole hunting and getting the youth in and involved. But,
oh yeah, you have to.
Oh, dude. No, we're gonna. Well, we'll get wrapped up here pretty soon. We've been talking for 2 hours already. It don't seem like 2 hours, but I'm gonna be doing some stuff. As far as we'll probably link up. I'm imagine if you get a chance to come up for that.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Come up. Like I said, you can stay with us in the new bunkhouse. It should be completely done by then, so you don't got to drag nothing up here or get a hotel and all that crap.
Right.
And then we'll keep trail camera pictures and stuff to each other, and then hopefully we can get behind each other.
Oh yeah,
and film for each other and get a memory, like you said earlier. It's like you've got that imprint in your head of watching that arrow go through, but there's nothing better than being able to rewatch it, relive it.
Yeah, I'd love to have that moment.
Yeah, I would love to give you that.
I've got the moment, but I'd like to share that moment.
Yeah,
I can talk about it all day, but just to watch that all unfold it was crazy.
All right, I'm gonna run an ad here, guys, for WTF Camo. If you guys haven't checked these guys out, it's more than just camo. Like I don't know how to explain it other than I've seen what it does as far as concealment, and they've dove into. They really took an edge. They didn't just go and create another camo pattern, guys. That's not what they did. They didn't give you another Sitka gear or another. Not that I'm saying Sitka gear is bad, because I think it breaks you up too, and I think it's great. But how many of them are there that are similar? I look at something when I look at something that I want an advantage.
Yeah.
I don't just want something that's there or that I think's going to do that. I want somebody to tell me, "Hey, dude, this is a different thing." And this camo pattern, guys, is just, it breaks you so much. All you saddle hunters, all you people that are out there doing that stuff, I really, really believe that this stuff's going to break you up better than anything else out there. And the proof's in the pudding, man. You know what I mean? It's when we're sitting behind these big deer this year, take a thought about it. And for the price point and the quality of material that they use in these products, the quality is there. Guys are great. I've never had a problem talking to any of these guys about something. If I have a question, they answer it immediately. They're not just there to give you a pattern. They're there to give you something that's going to keep you and give you that extra, that little extra when he might notice you.
Oh yeah.
You tell me what leaves are on the trees in November, guys. You let me know what leaves on the trees. And if it's, Alabama, maybe. But here in the Midwest, you find a time in November where those leaves are on the trees.
Yeah.
That's all I got to say about that. And anyway, I'm going to play a little thing, and you guys can look. All right, guys, we're going to be getting off here. I appreciate y'all for tuning in. We're going to get one more look at this giant. I'm actually going to take my headphones off and give you guys a real good look. Right in front of that camera. I mean, here's my wrist. Just an absolute stud. Anyway, guys, thank you again for tuning in, and check them out. We're gonna be having some things coming up here soon. Well, obviously, we're gonna be at the Public Land Challenge. We're gonna be at the Beer and Deer up in Illinois. We're also going to be going to obviously some other states, Kansas. I'm going to try to go Kansas hunt with Caleb, who was our pick of the litter this year. For those of you that don't know about the pick of the litter, anybody that comes on the show, they're in that pick of the litter deal. And we cross all kinds of things from, your approach, your passion, are you able to film? Are you able to get out there and have time to do it? It's not just being able to shoot a big buck. We take a lot of things into consideration when we pick that person. And the cool thing is you get to hunt with us for that whole season. If we go on a spot somewhere, we do our best to try to get you outfitted, and just like we do, give you the discount codes that we get from the Ridge Ghost side and the Coffee with Coleman side. It's basically just it's a really good way to go have some fun for a season and get some really cool stuff while you're out there doing it. And we love doing it. Plus, you guys help us learn. Every time I have somebody on the show, you guys are teaching me something. So,
vice versa. I mean, it's all intel is what I call it. Whatever you do with it, you do with it.
Yep. We'll give it to you, whether you use it or not. That's up to you. And then not all the knowledge that's on this from everybody that's shooting these giants are going to pertain to your property.
Right.
But I promise you, at some point, somebody's going to have a similar ordeal going on with the buck that you're trying to deal with. Yeah. I promise. Yeah. At some point, you're going to. Yeah. At some point. But anyway, thank you, Charlie, for coming on, man. I appreciate you. We're going to have you back up next year. Or actually, I'm coming to you. I'm going to come to you down there when you get him back. He's getting full body on him. So I'm definitely not going to miss out coming to see what that looks like. And the story back behind him, we'll dive in more. But I appreciate you guys. Thanks for coming out. And if you didn't see it live, we're going to have it on the recording. So till next time, as always, stay awesome, y'all.